First, contact Maya. Reyes wiped sweat from her brow as she studied the unusual rock formation jutting from the valley floor. The new Sonora Research Station had been her home for 8 months now, a remote geological outpost on the frontier of human settlement. As the station's lead geologist, she'd been sent to study the planet's unusual mineral compositions, work that most considered painfully dull, but filled her with genuine excitement. "Look at you," she said to the rock sample in her hand, turning it to catch the light of the binary suns overhead. "Quartz structure with traces of something I've never seen before." She carefully placed the sample in her collection bag, adding it to the dozens of others she'd gathered that day. Her comm unit crackled. "Maya, you need to get back to base now." The voice of Director Chen sounded unusually tense. "What's going on?" "I'm still mapping the eastern quadrant, and we've got unusual readings in orbit. Multiple objects just appeared out of nowhere." "Big ones." Maya paused, looking up at the clear blue sky. "Reinforcement ships? We weren't expecting supply drops for another 2 months. These aren't ours." The director's voice dropped lower. "Just get back here. Now." The journey back to the research station usually took 40 minutes in her rover, but Maya made it in 25, pushing the vehicle harder than she should have over the rough terrain. As she crested the final ridge overlooking the station, she slammed on the brakes. Hovering above the research station was a ship unlike anything humanity had built. It was massive, at least a kilometer in length, with a sleek, dark hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Smaller craft were descending toward the station, each one still larger than their supply shuttles. Maya killed the rover's engine and grabbed her binoculars. The small outpost looked pathetically vulnerable beneath the alien vessels. She could see people running between buildings, likely trying to establish emergency protocols or communications with Earth. "Director, are you there?" she whispered into her comm. No response. She zoomed in as one of the smaller craft landed in the station's central courtyard. A hatch opened and figures emerged. Tall, slender beings with reflective skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Their movements were fluid, almost graceful, as they spread out in a precise formation. Each carried what could only be a weapon, glowing with an ominous blue light. One of the station's security officers approached them with hands raised in what Maya recognized as a universal gesture of peace. The lead alien raised its weapon and fired without hesitation. The officer disintegrated into blue particles that scattered on the wind. Maya dropped to the ground, her heart pounding against her ribs. This wasn't first contact. This was an invasion. For 3 hours. She watched through her binoculars as the aliens methodically secured the research station. They moved with military precision, and their weapons made short work of any resistance. She tried the comm repeatedly, but it remained silent. Either communications had been cut, or there was no one left to respond. As the larger ship descended further, Maya noticed something strange. The craft seemed to wobble slightly, its perfect trajectory faltering as it approached the planet's surface. The aliens on the ground appeared to notice it too, several of them looking up with what she interpreted as concern. She needed to move. Staying on the ridge made her too exposed if they started scanning the area. Maya crawled backward until she was below the ridgeline, then made her way to a small cave she'd mapped months earlier. It wasn't much, but it would provide shelter while she figured out what to do. Inside the cave, she emptied her sample bag, examining the rocks she'd collected that day. Most were standard specimens, not particularly useful in her current predicament, but the unusual quartz sample caught her attention again. Under her portable analyzer, it showed properties she'd never seen before, with a crystalline structure that seemed to vibrate at frequencies that shouldn't be possible for inert matter. "What are you?" she whispered, running her fingers over its surface. A distant explosion made her jump. Peering cautiously from the cave entrance, she saw one of the alien craft spiraling toward the ground, trailing smoke. It crashed into the valley floor about 2 kilometers away, the impact sending dust and debris high into the air. Maya hesitated only briefly before gathering her equipment. A downed alien ship might provide answers, or at least a way to contact Earth. Approaching the crash site required extreme caution. Maya kept to ravines and rock outcroppings, using her geological knowledge of the terrain to remain hidden. The ship had carved a deep gouge into the earth before coming to rest against a cliff face. It was smaller than the mothership, but still impressive. Perhaps 70 meters long with the same light-absorbing hull. A section of the hull had been breached in the crash, creating an opening barely large enough for her to squeeze through. Maya hesitated at the entrance, her survival instincts screaming warnings, but the alternatives, hiding until she starved or being discovered by alien patrols, seemed worse. The interior of the ship was dimly lit by emergency lighting that pulsed with an amber glow. The architecture was alien but recognizable in function. Corridors, control panels, what appeared to be storage compartments. She moved carefully, listening for any sound that might indicate survivors. In what she assumed was the engine room, Maya found her first alien body. It looked different from those she'd observed at the research station. Its skin wasn't shifting colors, but instead had a dull, grayish tone. It was clearly dead, its limbs splayed at unnatural angles. Beside it lay what appeared to be a tool of some kind. Not a weapon, but something more sophisticated. Maya picked it up carefully. It hummed faintly in her hand, its surface warm to the touch. As she turned it over, the unusual quartz sample in her pocket seemed to grow warmer. On impulse, she removed the sample and held it near the alien device. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. The device sparked and sputtered, its humming escalating to a high-pitched whine before dying completely. At the same time, the quartz glowed with an inner light, vibrating gently against her palm. "Interesting," she murmured, her scientific curiosity temporarily overriding her fear. A noise from deeper within the ship snapped her back to the present danger. She wasn't alone. Moving as quietly as possible, Maya followed the sound to what appeared to be the command center. 3 aliens were alive, 2 badly injured and being tended to by a third. Their skin shifted through patterns of red and purple, which Maya guessed might indicate distress or pain. She ducked behind a console, watching them. The uninjured alien was speaking, its language a series of musical tones and clicks. It manipulated. Controls on a panel, likely trying to call for help. Each attempt resulted in frustrated gestures as the equipment sparked and failed. Maya's mind raced. The quartz had interfered with the alien device, and now their communications were failing. Could there be a connection? Her eyes darted around. The command center, noticing how the aliens kept their distance from certain panels that seemed to be malfunctioning more severely than others. A theory began to form. If the local minerals were somehow disruptive to their technology, that might explain the larger ship's difficulty as it approached the planet. It might also provide her with a weapon, possibly the only one she had. One of the injured aliens suddenly turned its head, looking directly at her hiding place. Its eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle, widened, and it made a sharp sound that clearly served as an alarm. Maya didn't wait. She bolted for the exit, clutching both the quartz sample and the alien device she'd recovered. Behind her, she heard the uninjured alien in pursuit, its footsteps swift and light on the metal flooring. She reached the hull breach and squeezed through, scraping her shoulder painfully on the jagged edge. Outside, she sprinted for the nearest ravine, using her knowledge of the landscape to her advantage. The alien emerged from the ship, raising what was unmistakably a weapon. A blue pulse of energy shot past her, missing by centimeters and striking a boulder instead. The rock didn't disintegrate as the human had at the research station. Instead, it cracked and sizzled, blue energy dancing across its surface before fading. Maya dove into the ravine and pressed herself against the wall, breathing hard. The alien approached cautiously, its weapon trained on the ravine entrance. She clutched the quartz sample tightly, a desperate plan forming. As the alien reached the edge of the ravine, Maya threw the sample directly at its weapon. The quartz struck with surprising accuracy, making contact with the glowing blue emitter. The reaction was instantaneous. The weapon sputtered and failed, its blue glow extinguished. The alien stared at its useless weapon in what looked like shock. Maya didn't waste the opportunity. She grabbed a heavy rock from the ravine floor and charged, swinging with all her strength. The rock connected with the alien's head with a sickening crunch, and it crumpled to the ground. Maya stood over the fallen alien, rock still clutched in her trembling hand, heart pounding. She'd just killed an invader with nothing but a rock and a mineral sample. Against their advanced technology, she'd prevailed using the most primitive weapon imaginable, and in that moment, she realized she might have discovered the key to fighting back. The resistance dawn brought renewed determination. Maya had spent the night in a different cave, one whose mineral composition she'd studied extensively during previous expeditions. Its walls were rich with the same unusual quartz structure that had interfered with alien technology, providing a natural shield against detection. She laid out her limited resources on a flat rock, her geological tools, the alien device she'd taken, the weapon she'd retrieved from the fallen alien, and a collection of mineral samples from around the region. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The alien weapon was her primary focus. Despite its non-functional state, she could still learn from its design. Maya carefully disassembled it using her field tools, revealing an intricate arrangement of components. Unlike any human technology, at its core was a crystalline structure that resembled a battery or power source. "So you're energy-based," she murmured, examining the crystal under her portable microscope. "And something about our local minerals disrupts your frequency." Through careful experimentation, Maya discovered that proximity to certain mineral samples caused fluctuations in the crystal's energy signature. The effect was strongest with the quartz-like samples, but several other local minerals produced similar, if weaker, reactions. By midday, she had confirmed her theory. The alien's technology relied on crystalline energy matrices that resonated at specific frequencies. The planet's unusual geology produced counter-frequencies that disrupted these matrices, with effectiveness varying based on mineral composition and proximity. Maya needed to test her theory on a larger scale. Taking her rover, she drove to a vantage point overlooking the research station, which had been converted into an alien forward base. Additional ships had landed, and structures were being assembled, the beginnings of a permanent occupation. Using her binoculars, she observed the aliens' operations. Their movement seemed less fluid than before, with occasional stumbles or hesitations. Some of their equipment appeared to be malfunctioning, requiring frequent adjustments. "You're not as comfortable here as you'd like to be," she whispered. Patrol of 3 aliens emerged from the station, heading in her general direction. Maya quickly packed her equipment and retreated to her rover, but not to flee. Instead, she drove to a mineral deposit she'd mapped weeks earlier, a vein of the reactive quartz exposed at the surface. Working rapidly, she gathered several sizable chunks and arranged them along the patrol's likely path. Then she concealed herself and waited. The aliens approached, moving with caution through the unfamiliar terrain. Each carried a weapon similar to the one Maya had disabled. When they came within 5 meters of the first quartz deposit, their reactions were immediate. One stumbled as if dizzy, while another's skin flickered rapidly between colors. Their weapons dimmed, the blue glow fading to a weak pulse. Maya stepped into view, a large rock in one hand and a particularly active quartz sample in the other. "Welcome to Earth," she said, knowing they wouldn't understand, but needing to say something to mark this moment of resistance. The aliens raised their weapons, but the firing mechanism sputtered and failed. Maya charged, swinging her rock with precision born of desperation. The first alien fell before it could react. The second managed to dodge her initial attack but backed directly into one of the quartz deposits. Its skin went gray almost instantly, and it collapsed. The third alien proved more adaptable. It discarded its useless weapon and produced a blade from its armor, a non-technological fallback. Maya retreated, keeping the quartz sample extended before her like a ward. The alien advanced cautiously, its three eyes fixed on the mineral. "You be." "Know what this does to you?" Maya realized aloud. "You're afraid of it." She lunged, thrusting the quartz toward the alien's face. It recoiled instinctively, giving her the opening to strike with her rock. The alien blocked her blow, but lost its balance. Maya pressed her advantage, forcing it back step by step until it stood directly against the largest quartz deposit. The effect was dramatic and disturbing. The alien's skin went from shifting colors to a sickly gray, similar to the dead alien she'd found in the crashed ship. It convulsed once, then collapsed, its body rigid. Maya stood among the fallen aliens, breathing hard. She had confirmed her theory and discovered a crucial weakness. But 3 patrol members were nothing compared to the invasion force occupying the research station. She needed to understand more about these beings and their technology if she was going to have any chance of driving them off. Searching the fallen aliens. Maya recovered several devices whose purpose she couldn't immediately determine. She also found what appeared to be a communication unit, still functional but producing only static. Most valuable was a small holographic projector that activated at her touch, displaying images of what she assumed was the alien's home world, a rocky planet with vast crystal formations instead of oceans or forests. "You're silicon-based," she murmured, the scientific realization cutting through her fear. "Not carbon like us. That's why our minerals affect you so strongly." The implications were staggering. These weren't just invaders with vulnerable technology. Their biology itself was incompatible with Earth's geology. Extended exposure to certain mineral compositions wasn't just disruptive to their equipment, it was toxic to their physical forms. Maya returned to her cave laboratory and continued her analysis, testing different mineral combinations for their effect on the alien devices. By evening, she had developed a crude but effective weapon, a compressed powder made from the most reactive minerals that could be dispersed as a cloud, creating a wide area of disruption. "Geological warfare," she said grimly, packaging the powder into small containers fashioned from her field equipment. "Never thought my PhD would be used quite this way." A distant rumble drew her attention to the cave entrance. The massive alien ship was descending further, now hovering directly above the research station. Its lower sections were deploying structures that extended toward the ground, the beginnings of a permanent installation. Maya knew she had to act before they established a stronger foothold. Her mineral weapons might be effective against patrols and smaller craft, but against the mothership, she would need something more dramatic. Studying her geological maps of the region, she identified a formation that might serve her purpose: a massive underground deposit of the reactive minerals, concentrated beneath a naturally unstable rock shelf. If she could lure enough of their forces to that location and trigger a collapse, the resulting mineral exposure might be enough to disable a significant portion of their technology. The plan was taking shape, but Maya knew she couldn't implement it alone. She needed to know if any other humans had survived. Under cover of darkness, she made her way to the perimeter of the occupied research station, carrying several of her mineral powder bombs as protection. Through her binoculars, she observed aliens loading equipment into one of their ships. To her shock, she also saw humans, alive but clearly prisoners, their hands bound, being herded into the same vessel. Among them was Director Chen, his face bruised but his posture defiant. "They're taking samples," Maya whispered, the realization chilling her. Whether the humans were intended as specimens, slaves, or something worse, she couldn't allow them to be taken off planet. The prisoner transport presented both a complication and an opportunity. Maya's plan expanded. She would need to free the captives and use them to help implement her larger strategy against the mothership. As she watched, Maya noticed one of the aliens examining a soil sample from the station grounds. Its reaction confirmed her theory. The alien recoiled from the sample, its skin flashing warning colors. Another alien approached with what appeared to be protective equipment, allowing the first to continue its analysis while shielded from direct contact. "You're adapting," Maya murmured, "learning how to work around our minerals." Her window of opportunity was closing. The aliens were developing countermeasures to the planet's natural defenses. If she waited too long, her mineral weapons would lose their effectiveness. Tomorrow would be the decisive day. Maya returned to her cave to make final preparations, gathering every bit of the reactive minerals she could find and refining her plan. She would have one chance to free the human prisoners, lead them to the geological formation, and trigger the trap she envisioned. As she worked through the night, Maya thought about the absurdity of her situation. Humanity's first contact with an alien species, and she, a geologist with no military training, was Earth's only line of defense, armed with rocks against their energy weapons and spaceships. "Good thing I always liked being the underdog," she told herself, compressing another batch of mineral powder. By morning, she was ready, exhausted but determined. The fate of the research station, the prisoners, and possibly Earth itself would depend on her understanding of rocks and minerals, the most ancient and overlooked weapons on the planet. Maya loaded her rover with her mineral weapons and tools, marking the final coordinates on her map. The plan relied on timing, precision, and more than a little luck. If she failed, there would be no second chance. "Time to show them what one human with a rock can do," she said, starting the rover's engine as the twin suns rose over the horizon. Humanity triumphant. Maya positioned her rover behind a ridge overlooking the alien landing zone. The prisoner transport was scheduled to depart within the hour, according to the patterns she'd observed. She had laid mineral traps along the most likely patrol routes and carried her most potent samples in a reinforced bag. The waiting was excruciating. Every minute that passed increased the risk of discovery. Finally, movement caught her eye. The prisoners were being marched toward the transport ship, surrounded by armed guards. Director Chen was at the front, supporting a limping colleague. Maya activated the first diversion, a controlled explosion, in the hills opposite her position, using detonators from her geological survey equipment. The reaction was immediate. Several guard ships detached from the main force and moved to investigate, exactly as she'd hoped. With fewer eyes on the perimeter, Maya drove her rover directly toward the transport ship at maximum speed. She activated a second diversion as she approached, a larger explosion that sent a cloud of mineral-rich dust into the air near the guards. The effect was dramatic. The aliens nearest to the dust cloud stumbled, their weapons sputtering and failing. Their skin flickered rapidly through colors before settling into a distressed pattern of reds and violets. Maya didn't slow down. She crashed the rover directly into the perimeter barrier, creating a gap large enough for the prisoners to escape through. Leaping from the vehicle, she threw several of her mineral powder bombs, creating a protective screen between the prisoners and the remaining guards. "This way!" she shouted to the stunned captives. "Run! Follow me!" Director Chen reacted first, understanding immediately that this was a rescue. He helped his injured colleague and shouted orders to the others. The prisoners broke into a run, heading for the gap Maya had created. The aliens attempted to pursue, but each time they approached the mineral dust cloud, their movements became erratic and uncoordinated. Some fell to their knees, their skin turning the now familiar gray of extreme distress. "What the hell is happening?" Director Chen gasped as he reached Maya's position. "Silicon-based life forms," she explained quickly, distributing mineral samples to the prisoners. "Earth's geology is poison to them. Take these, they'll keep you safe if they get close." 27 survivors followed Maya as she led them away from the research station toward the geological formation she'd selected for her final stand. Behind them, alarm signals wailed from the alien vessels. The mothership was descending further, its massive shadow darkening the landscape. "They're calling in everything they have," Maya explained as they ran, "which is exactly what we want." The director looked at her as if she'd lost her mind. "We want them to send reinforcements?" "Trust me," Maya said. "I'm a geologist." They reached the formation, a massive overhang where millions of years of geological processes had created a natural trap. Beneath the surface was one of the largest deposits of the reactive minerals on the planet, currently shielded by several meters of rock. "Everyone, get to the cave system behind the ridge," Maya instructed, pointing to a natural shelter she'd scouted earlier. "No matter what happens, stay there until I give the all-clear." "What are you going to do?" Chen asked. Maya patted the detonators in her pocket. "I'm going to give our visitors a geology lesson they won't forget." As the survivors took shelter, Maya placed her remaining explosive charges at key structural points around the overhang. Her geological training allowed her to identify the precise locations where detonation would trigger a cascading collapse, exposing the mineral deposit below. She had just placed the final charge when a shadow fell over her. Looking up, Maya found herself staring at an alien unlike the others she'd encountered. This one was larger, its skin patterns more complex, and it wore what appeared to be a form of protective suit that shielded it from direct contact with the environment. "The commander," Maya realized. The alien spoke, its language unintelligible, but its tone unmistakably threatening. It held a weapon different from those carried by the regular troops, more substantial and with a deeper blue glow that suggested greater power. Maya slowly raised her hands, keeping the detonator concealed in her palm. The alien approached cautiously, clearly aware of the danger posed by the local minerals but protected by its suit. Around them, more alien craft were arriving, surrounding the formation just as Maya had intended. "You picked the wrong planet," Maya said, backing up step by step, leading the commander toward the center of her trap. "Did you even do a basic geological survey before invading? That's just sloppy science." The alien continued its advance, gesturing with its weapon for Maya to stop moving. Behind it, troops were deploying in formation, creating a perimeter around the confrontation. Maya had reached her final position, directly above the most vulnerable section of the overhang. The commander stood less than 10 meters away, its three eyes fixed on her with what she interpreted as contempt. "Allow me to introduce you to Earth's real defense system," Maya said, raising the detonator. "It was here long before we were." She pressed the trigger. The explosions rippled through the formation in precisely the sequence Maya had calculated. The overhang shuddered, massive cracks appearing along its length. The alien commander looked up in alarm as tons of rock began to shift and groan. Maya dove for the shelter of a smaller cave as the collapse began in earnest. The overhang split apart, massive sections crashing down around the alien forces. Dust filled the air, temporarily obscuring everything from view. When it settled, the landscape had been transformed. Where solid rock had stood was now a massive crater, exposing the mineral deposit below, a vast expanse of crystals that glittered in the sunlight, releasing energies invisible to human eyes, but devastatingly potent to the aliens. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the invaders. Those nearest to the exposure fell instantly, their protective gear insufficient against such concentrated power. Further back, aliens stumbled and convulsed, their skin shifting rapidly through colors before settling into the gray of extreme distress. Above, the smaller ships began to falter, their flight paths becoming erratic. Several crashed into each other, creating secondary explosions. The mothership itself appeared to be struggling, its massive hull vibrating visibly as systems failed throughout its structure. Maya emerged from her shelter, a rock clutched in one hand and a quartz sample in the other. The alien commander was still alive but incapacitated, its protective suit damaged in the collapse. It looked up at Maya, its three eyes blinking in what might have been disbelief. "Silicon versus carbon," Maya said, holding up the quartz. "Basic geology wins." The mothership was retreating now, moving higher into the atmosphere as if trying to escape the planet's influence. The smaller vessels that could still fly were following, abandoning their ground forces and equipment in a desperate bid to escape. Director Chen and the other survivors emerged from their shelter, staring in awe at the retreating alien fleet. "You did it," Chen said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You drove them off with rocks." Maya watched as the last of the alien ships disappeared into the upper atmosphere. "Not just rocks," she corrected. "The right rocks." In the days that followed, Maya led the survivors in securing the research station and salvaging what they could from the abandoned alien technology. Communications with Earth were eventually restored, and the full story of the new Sonora defense was transmitted back to a stunned planetary government. The defeated alien commander remained their prisoner, kept stable in a specially designed containment unit that limited its exposure to Earth's minerals. Through painstaking effort, basic communication was established. They learned that the invaders called themselves the Vekrians, a spacefaring empire that had conquered dozens of worlds across their region of the galaxy. Earth was the first planet to repel them. They assumed that technological superiority guaranteed victory, Maya explained during a debriefing with Earth's Defense Council, transmitted over subspace link. They never considered that the planet itself might be their enemy. "And you believe they won't return?" asked the Secretary of Defense. "Oh, they might try," Maya acknowledged. "But now we know their weakness, and we're already developing more refined applications of the mineral effect. Next time, we'll be ready for them." The research station was expanded into Earth's first planetary defense outpost, with Maya appointed as its scientific director. Teams of geologists, once considered among the least crucial scientific disciplines for space exploration, were now deployed to every human colony and outpost. 6 months after the invasion attempt, Maya stood on the ridge overlooking the research station, a new quartz sample in her hand. The facility below bustled with activity as scientists and military personnel worked to integrate their understanding of Earth's geology with defensive systems. "Who would have thought," she mused, turning the crystal to catch the light of the binary suns, "that humanity's greatest weapon was under our feet all along?" The quartz glimmered in response. Its ancient structure formed millions of years before humans walked the Earth, holding secrets that had saved a species and perhaps changed the course of interstellar relations forever. A simple rock in the hand of a knowledgeable human had proven more powerful than the most advanced alien technology. It wasn't the weapon that mattered, Maya had learned, but understanding how to use the resources available to you, and humanity, adaptable and resourceful as always, had just added one more chapter to its long history of improbable triumphs.